back to the Unarmored Talk podcast, everyone. Again, if you're a first time listener and viewer, if you're watching this on YouTube, welcome to this amazing, that's my belief, amazing show. I mean, you can check out the reviews on some of the audio and video. And if you have been listening to us more than one episode or watching more than one episode, I thank you for your continued support. Again, as we rapidly approach our 4th-year anniversary, you guys have been amazing. And I'm going to continue to do this, even if I'm in the wheelchair and I can't even speak. I'll have a translator. We're going to continue to shape the world by having amazing guests come on, remove their armor to help you understand. All of us understand that there's about 8.5 billion humans on Earth, latest research, and we all have emotions. And to think is a choice unless you're insane. Keyth Pankau, what's going on, man?
Not much. Glad to be here, Mario. So excited to be a guest on your show. Love the platform. Love you. So glad Samson Cantu introduced me. So we're really excited just to be a part of this.
Hey, love you too, my friend. Everyone, just a little bit about our guest who's on the show today. Keyth has served many years in actually his career, his journey. I won't say career. His journey started in the United States Navy, and then he went to the Coast Guard. He's retired officer from the United States Coast Guard. He served in combat. But here's what him and I were just talking about before the show. Keyth has, supported and directly served in approximately 15, if not more, major humanitarian assistance to disaster relief, catastrophic events. His first one was Hurricane Katrina. What a way to start off in the humanitarian space. And if anyone is watching or listening to this show and you lost a loved one in that natural disaster, or your house, your livelihood was disrupted, I will continue to still pray for you because I know the brain does not have a delete button. He's also the host and producer of his own podcast. All right. And if you guys have not subscribed to his podcast, shame on you. Shame on all of you. Get on there. That all might be edified. Discussions on servant leadership is his podcast. He's a host and producer. Again, follow his show. Leave him some rating and reviews. I'm done. You're awesome. I got another podcaster on the show. Please continue to tell the listeners and viewers a little bit more about yourself, Keyth.
Well, like you said, I enlisted in the Navy and started out kind of not really a normal Navy career. My first duty station was Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California. So I don't know how fortunate I was, who I was friends with, but somehow in that A school list, nobody knew where Monterey was in California. And somehow I got on the pick list. I was high enough. I was like, and smart enough to know, well, California, I'm grabbing that, and didn't know what Naval NPG was, but Naval Postgraduate School, here I come. It was great. Fantastic duty station. And that's where I learned about the Defense Language Institute. And so I did my first tour there. Second tour, I transferred to a Navy Mobile Construction Battalion where I supported the Marine Corps there in Fallujah, Iraq, and just really loved being with the Seabees. But then I was pursuing a degree in Middle Eastern Studies, and I was like, oh, I can finish my degree if they'll send me back to language school. So I didn't know anything about languages, as many of us in the military know, we get pigeonholed. We talk to a recruiter and like, hey, you'd be really good at this. You should do this. And they kind of drive you one direction unless you have a background or know some things. And that was my experience. So I learned about being a linguist. And so I switched jobs and went back to Monterey to be a linguist. And then I pursued that path, and I deployed much more back to the Middle East after my Iraq experience with the Seabees as a Farsi linguist, and then got picked up as an officer in the Coast Guard as a direct commission intel officer. And then quickly learned that in the Coast Guard, the Coast Guard's a small service, so they expect you to have many responsibilities. And so I grew up in a really kind of tumultuous, chaotic background, and having been in combat, I realized that disaster response, crisis management was something I thrived in. I just loved bringing order to chaos. And so I quickly started getting qualified in that, and that's where I went, and I stayed in that path ever since. And I do that as a civil servant for the Coast Guard now. I've stayed in the Gulf Coast. I moved around a bunch. I spent a better part of my career on the Gulf Coast, but I came to Louisiana after Katrina. I moved away, came back, and then I've stayed here. So, and we retired here so my daughter could pursue her own opportunities, which I think is what we're going to talk about today. But that's
Yeah,
kind of me in a nutshell.
we're gonna jump into that, but listen to that transferable skill. I mean, if y'all didn't catch it, I'm gonna say it again. Mario, I have a passion for bringing comfort in chaos. I'm comfortable in crisis. I mean, what? I mean, what? I don't know if your company or whomever is going to listen to this. Y'all need to give Keyth a bonus or something. Give him a performance award. How many people got that soft skill that are like, the more crisis, let me in. And I tell you, and I know you've done a lot of wonderful things for people who were in crisis, my friend.
Yeah, and it's very rewarding. And you start to learn that people's brains do shut off, whether it's combat,
Hmm.
humanitarian assistance, it doesn't matter. Everybody has a breaking point. We all do. And we're going to we just hope we don't find it is the reality of the
Right.
situation because it's there. There's an off button in our brains at some moment of trauma. It's gonna flip, and we're gonna like, and so we just hope we don't find what ours is. And so we can all think, oh, that person they cowered or they froze, but they just hit their off switch, their off moment. We all have it. And so that's what I've learned doing this over many years, is that I just don't want to get to the point where I find mine. So I keep building, the skills I've learned to increase my resiliency to manage those things. My childhood helped me a lot. I've learned,
Hmm.
as negative as it was, it helped me build a lot of those skills early on. But it doesn't mean that I'm necessarily better than anyone else. It just, I've learned how to bring those skills to bear, and I've learned to watch for those other things that are fracturing around me, where my off switch might be a little bit more exposed at the moment.
Yeah, well, let's metaphorically jump right into that. A man who is skilled at either one, turning opportunities in moments of crisis, or two, intentionally avoiding a crisis. And from my basic understanding, you're doing well in the Coast Guard. So everything is going smoothly. Now you got a decision point. Do you stay in or do you retire? and and from my understanding is the one of the main decision points was based on a teenager, your daughter, I want to say. That was the focal point. Let's talk about that journey and how did that happen, because a
Yeah,
lot of folks, real fast, Keith, that's a critical moment. I have teenagers, or I have a teenager, they're in school. What do I do? Over to you.
yeah, let me set the stage too for a moment.
Yeah.
So, it's 2022 is when I retired. So
Hmm.
September 1st, 2022 is my retirement date. Just to give people some background.
Hmm.
So 2020, I lead the 8th Coast Guard District's response to COVID. So I managed the movement of all of our major resources to make sure that we didn't hinder any of our partners needing supplies and resources so that we could continue to do search and rescue, all of our critical needs that they could be met, but that we didn't actually take away from, first responders and do things like that. So we were actively looking at, on a day-to-day basis, how many N95 masks do we have? Who's used one or two? And do we need to ship them around the country? We were at the speed of need looking at, okay, how fast can we move things around so we don't take stuff from people that might need it for that
Mm.
critical response? And
Wow.
so that was one of the things I was doing. And then, so I did that for 4 months straight. And then I got pulled away to assist with this massive marine casualty, the Golden Ray. It was we call a roll on, roll off, a car carrier, um, with Hyundai, Globus, and a bunch of other companies. It flipped on its side in St. Simon Island Sound in Georgia. So I got brought in as my pollution response expertise to do a whole, as part of the marine investigation, to look at,
Mhm.
some of the authorities on the pollution response and salvage piece. So I'm doing this simultaneously while I'm doing a lot of things. I'm
Oh,
traveling back and forth, and I'm doing this. And then we roll into the busy hurricane season of 2020, where I responded to the 6 named storms. So that's
mm.
kind of that 2020. And then I continue on. And then, a year or so later, we had a hurricane hit here in Louisiana. And then I immediately get deployed to Mexico as a liaison to the Mexican Navy.
So from my base, you're not spending much time home, my friend.
No, not a lot. And so, and I'm high speed, and that's been kind of like my whole career. So in my last few years in the Coast Guard,
Mhm.
which is not normal, I got a meritorious service medal, 3 Coast Guard commendation medals, a joint service achievement medal, a Coast Guard achievement medal, military outstanding volunteer medal. And that was just in my
Mm.
last tour. And so I don't say that to brag. I say that
Mhm.
because I was on a climb at this point in my career. I was doing really good professionally in my mind. I was going where I wanted to go and doing the things I wanted to do. I really wanted to be a defense attaché. I was an intelligence person. I had all this other experience. I wanted to make O5 to go be a defense attaché. That was my goal. That's what I wanted to be. That was everything I strove for. I was building the plan. They sent me to Mexico. It was another notch in my belt to prepare for that. I was ready. That was me. So I'm trying to set the stage here because I'm moving. My plan's in place. We all
Oh
build up
yeah.
plans, right? It's moving. Well, my daughter applies to the New Orleans Center of Creative Arts. It's a prestigious art school,
Mhm.
and she gets in for a part-time position. And I'm here in Mexico working on a doctorate too. And so I'm talking with my wife, and she's really like, what do we do if she gets this opportunity? And I'm like, well, it's a pretty big deal. Do we just move her to some random high school if she gets this? It's a big thing. And I'm like, I don't know that we do. I think, and to give you a little background, our daughter had struggled. When we were stationed in Alaska, she struggled in that school system, and she started to lose her desire to learn, to be
Mm.
part of the education system. And it continued to decline ever since then. And she was continuing on that path of decline. Well, so she showed some initiative towards this. So I was like, oh, this is pretty exciting. I don't know if what we do with this. And so we're a pretty faith-filled family. So we were prayerful about it. And we're like, well, let's see what happens. My wife, amazing woman that she is, was like, well, let's just see what the Coast Guard offers you. Let's see what the different decisions are before we really make a decision. And at the same time, not token, but I told my daughter, I said, hey, Annabella, what I need you to do is I need to make you a good list of all the things that are beneficial about, getting into this school, all the things that are beneficial about moving to another place, all the things that are negative about getting into this school, all the things that are negative about moving into a new place, all these things. I had her make this. I'm like, really, I want you to think it through, not what you want, but all the things that could really help you. And we had a really good
Mhm.
dialogue. We have a really good relationship. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
help her and overlook the things she really wants. And so I'm communicating with this. And then about a week after I tell her this, it just dawns on me, you know, I haven't done this. I didn't do this for me. I have my plan and I see what could be beneficial to her, but I'm like, I didn't really think it through. And so I'm like, I need to do the work. If I'm
Hey,
asking her to
Keith.
do the work,
Hey,
I need to
hey,
do the
Keith.
work.
Hey, Keith, would you like so this is some world-class advice, Annabelle. I tell
Yeah.
you, you can't go wrong if you follow your dad's advice. All right? All right? I'll talk to you in a couple of days, baby girl. Man, maybe I need to take my own advice.
So that's exactly what happened. And so I'm doing the work, and then it dawns on me, I have become a Coast Guard officer. That's my identity. That's who I
Yeah.
am.
Mm.
And I don't know if I can be anything else.
Wow.
And then that's when I'm like, oh man, I really got to make some hard decisions if this is the choice we're going to make. I'll do anything for my family, but that's when it
Right.
really dawns on me,
Yeah.
this is who I am now. This is a part of me, and I love it. And I love that's who I've become.
Mhm.
There's nothing about that I didn't like. There's things in the organization that I wanted to make better and all that stuff, but I loved being a Coast Guard officer. I loved
Right.
everything about it. And um, man, and then this thought came to me that the most important identity to me was that I was a child of God, and
Amen.
everything else was secondary. And that's what I needed to focus on. And
Wow.
that helped me center. And that one really kind of took me down and helped me start to do different work at that point. And that's what I needed at that point on. And so my daughter not only got into the part-time spot, they offered her a full-time spot at the New Orleans Center of creative arts.
Wow.
So now we have a really big decision to make. Well, the Coast Guard didn't make it too hard for us. They offered us a position that my family wasn't overly excited about in Corpus Christi, Texas, which they were like, well, it's just another move in the Gulf Coast. Nothing wrong with
Hmm.
Corpus Christi. It's just there wasn't anything exotic about it. There wasn't anything they were going to learn or new experiences they were going to get. We'd lived in the Gulf Coast before. The job was a job I was already completely qualified for, so it wasn't setting me up for more. It wasn't doing much more for me. So we're
Right.
like, oh, this isn't, okay, this looks like this is a pretty easy decision now. It's not really that good for us. So we we were like, all right, we talked about it. Okay, let's make the decision. I'm in Mexico. Let's retire. So everyone gets on board. I submit the letter before the actual assignment comes in to get in front of the assignment process. Well, then, I'm doing the job for the International Affairs Office. Well, they immediately call me and they were like, hey, what if we sent you to Bogota, Colombia instead? And I'm like, well, that would have been a way better offer. And yeah, that's now they're speaking my language here. So, and they start really kind of, I can't get any guarantees, but they start, wheeling and dealing.
Can you give
And
us your bank account? Can you give us?
yeah, they they're even like, well, we'd even let you retire potentially and go on retired recall.
Oh
And
my
so all
goodness.
sorts of stuff. We're like, we love the work you're doing in Mexico. You've built some great partnerships. Like what can we do? And so and I had some hard conversations. And then my wife, she'd been nice up to that point. She was like, Keyth, are these experiences that you need to have? Or are these experiences you want to have?
Mm,
And she didn't say it exactly like that, but that's the way I took it. And I knew
right.
at that point we needed to give our daughter. It was our time to choose her over choosing my career. And that was tough for me. And then I went back to that remembering that it was more about my identity and letting go of that identity as a Coast Guard
Hmm.
officer. It was time to shed that identity, shed that armor that I'd been hiding behind, and time to pick up a different identity, a different armor. And I'd learned something, and you talked about my bio in Fallujah and my time in Katrina. When I went to Fallujah, I had an amazing experience. Fallujah should have been awful, and it was for a lot of people. I was there from '04 to '05, not a pleasant
Hmm.
time to be in Fallujah. And I did convoy security, not a pleasant type of work as well. But I had an amazing experience and a strong spiritual experience because I went in every day really centered on doing the work, having the positive attitude, drawing closer to God, and just being a good person and just uplifting and serving the people around me. And I was focused because I thought every day could be my last. So I was focused.
Hmm.
Well, then fast forward to Katrina. I have orders to go to language school, and my wife's 7 months pregnant. She's miserable. She's almost bedridden, and I start focusing on me. Why am I going
Hmm.
to Katrina? I'm supposed to PCS. Why do I have to go to Katrina? And I deploy down there. These people need massive amounts of help, but I'm still focused on me. I'm
Hmm.
my sob story, and I'm there helping, and I'm going through the motions, but I don't get as much out of it because I was so focused on me. Well, that lesson never left me, and so when it came time to make the choice, I remembered it was time to not focus on me, to focus on my family, to focus on the other people I could help because I can still do everything that I've been taught to do and help others. I don't have to be a Coast Guard officer to do that. There's
Yeah.
many different ways to do that.
And look at what you're doing now. I mean, it's amazing how God, you've heard this kind of metaphors. You have your plans, and then God has his. You're like, I'm this Coast Guard officer, and God's going, you peasant. Like God's going, go get me some orange juice. And I want some decaf coffee because it's after 1 o'clock. But what an amazing opportunity to self-reflect. And Keith, that was a choice. And I'm glad that you came on this show because I believe not just in the military, but even in all professional circles, in all industries, that unexpected choice will present itself, whatever that means. And sometimes, like you said, it's a choice to self-reflect and say, what is my identity? Is it because I'm a CEO of a company or mid-level manager or just an entry-level employee? Or am I Keyth Pankau? I identify the rank. The rank doesn't identify me. And it's amazing how it took Annabelle in that external factor, and of course, like how to the opportunities start to present themselves. And the man who's comfortable in crisis now self-reflecting, realizing I'm the one who's creating some crisis here, and that's powerful. To be able to do that, I applaud you. I don't have a special button, man. I'm not, so I think by 2025 I'll be able to have a budget where I can get that. We'll get to 200 episodes, but I'm not going to hold you too much because you know the deal. You're just an amazing person, and I would stay on the show with you. But before I let you go, my friend, looking back, looking back at that journey where you had to realize that this false identity that you have built your belief system around. In other words, you're more than a Coast Guard officer. You are an amazing human. Looking back at that whole journey, if you had to pick one thing that you learned and you could give our listeners and viewers, what would you give them?
Yeah, I think the thing I learned is to be ready to make the choice to choose the people around you. Because now I look at my daughter. We're getting ready to move her to the University of Hawaii Pacific or Hawaii Pacific University to study marine biology. She's all in. She's
Wow.
back on the train of wanting to pursue her dreams of education. When she was a little girl, she wanted to study coral restoration. It took going back to the New Orleans Center of Creative Arts and going back to her creative writing to remember that she wanted to be a marine biologist. They reinvigorated her love of
Mm.
education there. And I didn't foresee that was going to happen. I didn't think they were going to transform my daughter back into this girl that just loved learning and believed in herself. That's what they did more for her than anything I could ever appreciate is they taught her to believe in herself again. And so the thing I learned is to pay attention to the opportunities that are being presented to you because they're not going to look like what we have jotted down on a plan.
Mm.
And like you said, it's a choice. We have to choose to deviate from that plan to get those opportunities because those opportunities, as that quote often says, they're dressed in coveralls and they look like work. That's true. So we have to choose them because they're not going to always be fun. And that word, and as my Navy and Coast Guard experiences, people would walk up to you and be, I have an opportunity for you. Usually that means I got some work for you, but it really is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to get better, to grow, to learn, and to achieve something more. But I think paying attention to those opportunities to do something for someone else is also important.
That is awesome. And please give my regards to Admiral Pankow, that's your wife, for going what it like you said, the way you process it for her to go, the hell you doing? And you know the power of because you're just an O1, right? She's like an O10, she's a 4-star, admiral. But but again, thank you to your wife. Tell Annabelle I said congratulations from the Fields family. And again, you see, if you're watching this, I've been smiling a lot. I have a permanent tan, so you can't see me blushing. But just seeing the decision you made, and decisions you make, seeing how meaningful it's been to you, and just imagining how happy Annabelle is and her passion. It's just beautiful. And I hope there's others that listen and watch this episode be able to experience the same thing while we're on this earth. Love you, man.
Love
Love the
it too,
hell out
man.
of you.
Thanks so much.
And thank you for your service. Everybody, again, get on his show. How can they find you? How can folks find you in the social media world?
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram that all might be edified with some underscores in between the words. They can find me on, um, I'm on the podcast is on all platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcast, all the others that you can think of there's a YouTube channel for it. Yeah, they can find me on all that stuff. There is an X account, although I don't use that as much. I think I'm not a big X person. So, but there is an X account as too. If you're into that, I can beef that up as well.
Nice. You guys heard it. I will make sure all those links, my friend, are in the show notes. But everyone, until next time, may God continue to bless you, your family, your friends, and every living being around you. Keyth, be safe out there, man, and God bless you, brother.
God bless you.